Hello, English 3, and welcome back to American Literature. Today we are going to be doing something a little bit different than we've done thus far, and we're actually going to be looking at a few songs today. Now, unfortunately, these songs are not probably necessarily something you're super used to, as remember the time period we're studying is kind of before the Revolutionary period for the most part. And so these songs are actually what are going to be called spirituals. So right up there on this PDF. Sometimes I've also seen them called sorrow songs, and essentially what they are songs that were written by enslaved African Americans, and they are kind of think of them as like a comforting song about religion, essentially. Some of them you may actually recognize a little bit, as a few of them are very popular and have been made into more like traditional hymns nowadays. But their origins are as this kind of song that would have either been sung in a makeshift church or even maybe sung during like work times. So think out in the fields, these songs just being kind of sung along and hummed by a bunch of different people all while they're working. Um, and so, like I said, because of some of those very difficult conditions that enslaved African Americans experienced, they are a type of comforting song. It's kind of their purpose. Kind of why sometimes they're called sorrow songs. So if on Google Classroom there's a post that says literary analysis spirituals, and on that post there is this PDF, which is from an anthology that I have, and it has a little bit of an introduction here if you would like to read it about what spirituals are, and then it has the different songs. It's a little bit choppy because I wanted to kind of jump around and get just the songs we're going to be focusing on, but you'll see as you scroll down which ones you need to look at. So the first thing I want you to do is I have posted in Google Classroom a link to the Library of Congress. And it looks like this, and it is a recording of the spiritual Go Down Moses. And so you can just click this little play button right here, and it will play that. And this one, if you scroll down here, it's actually kind of a cool thing. It gives you, so here's who was singing, I'm not a musical person, but I'm sure to some of you, a bass or a tenor means more than it means to me. And it also tells you a bit about where they were singing and the time frame. So this was actually the Tuskegee Institute Singers, and I believe it has a year somewhere here. Oh, I think it's down here. Yes, okay. So this was recorded in 1914, which to me is just crazy that we have recorded music from so long ago. That was over 100 years ago at this point. So this is just kind of something a little bit fun, a little bit interactive, and you can kind of hear more what this would have sounded like in its traditional sense. So go ahead and listen to that. And if you want to follow along in the PDF, there is a printed version of the lyrics of Go Down Moses. So go ahead and pause me and do that first. All right, and if you're back, welcome back. So I just want to kind of break down the assignment we're doing today and show you how to do that with Go Down Moses, and then you will be able to go ahead and do that on your own. There is a list of the different spirituals that you can choose from in Google Classroom, and like I said, they're all here in this PDF. Some of them are on the Library of Congress website if you want to click around on it and look around, but not all of them are, but you can find a recorded version of a few of them. Also on that literary analysis spirituals post on Google Classroom, there is an attached Google Doc. Just looks like this, and I have more elaborate written out questions for each of these three things on Google Classroom. But essentially what I want you to do is try to write, I'd say a goal of at least 2 sentences, preferably closer to a paragraph for all except for theme, for this assignment. So for context, so we're going to be thinking about what is the context that this was written in and how does that change things. So all of these spirituals were written in the context of slavery and some of those atrocities that happened. So for Go Down Moses, if you've read through it already, you'll see that it's kind of talking about So go down, Moses, way down in Egypt land, tell old Pharaoh to let my people go. So as we break this down, we have to keep context in mind because context is super important to analyzing literature. So if the context is slavery of African American peoples, then the context of talking about Moses in Egypt, where Egypt enslaved the Israelites historically, and to let my people go, there's some context there for a parallel there between Egypt and America and the Israelites and the African Americans. And so essentially, this entire hymn is it's actually a very, very famous spiritual for known for being a kind of call to action for running away or getting emancipation. And so kind of let my people go. So the context is that African American peoples would want to be freed and that they want Pharaoh, or in this case, America, to let them go. So, context, step one. Step number two, figurative language. So, think about all of those fancy words that I'm sure you learned in sophomore year, like allusion and personification and metaphor and simile and symbolism and personification. Um, all of those type of things, because all of them are going to apply to these spirituals. So for this one, we have a bit of an easier one. It would be allusion, because if you remember, allusion is when you refer to something else in a piece of literature. So here we're calling back to the Bible and to that story of Moses and letting my people go. And so it's an allusion that is being used to kind of draw a connection between Moses and then the condition of African Americans. And then lastly, theme. So theme is something we haven't talked about a ton, but when you look at this, what is a theme in the entire thing? And remember, themes are big ideas, big overarching ideas. So themes might be freedom, they might be comfort, they might be sorrow, they might be mourning or grief or a whole wide list of things. So for Go Down Moses, I kind of like I was talking about earlier, I would go ahead and say something along the lines of either emancipation or freedom as a theme here. And so remember, I said at least two sentences. So don't just give me like one word for a theme. Go ahead and explain a little bit about how that theme applies. And those are the only steps that I need you to do for this. So there will be a assignment tomorrow that we're going to be doing the same 3 steps, but we're going to be doing them in more detail. So consider this a type of warm-up for that activity. And just as a reminder, we are learning about spirituals, first of all, so that you can analyze songs. Second of all, because they're a really important part of African American history, and I want us to kind of be familiar with that and what was going on with that people group in this same time period. But also, I think there's this kind of myth that enslaved African American peoples were not artful or not ready to create things of beauty. And despite awful circumstances that I wouldn't expect anyone to create anything beautiful in, we have these really like amazing hymns, which is essentially what they are. And so I just want us to be able to appreciate that and kind of learn from it. So go ahead and complete all of those steps that I just walked you through for your choice of spiritual from this list in Google Classroom. And then the last thing you're going to need to do today is there is another post that says Free Write Religion. And essentially, all I want you to do for that one is I want you to set a timer, like always. Remember, you need to write for the entire time. And I want you to write about, so we've talked about religion in a lot of different contexts at this point. We've talked about what the Christians did in Las Casas' account. We talked about the Native American creation stories. We talked about freedom of religion with Red Jacket. We talked about Puritanism all of last week and kind of a lot of the hypocrisy that was going on there. And so now we have another kind of religious text, but it's very different than all the other ones. So how is it different and why? And that's kind of what I want you to answer in that free write, is kind of reflect on religion in this context, since it's very different than all the other ones we've looked at. Okay, and that is all for today. If you need any help or need anything from me, please let me know. Just a reminder that there is tutoring signups available for Tuesday and Thursday this week, and there is also going to be that vocab quiz on Friday, so make sure you're ready for that. All right, see you all later.